Welcome to my best campaign. Today we're talking to Talia Goldstein. Talia is the founder and president of 3-Day Rule Matchmaking, which is a thriving matchmaking business in 12 cities across the US with a team of 50 matchmakers. This approach to dating might sound a little old-fashioned, but her clients tend to actually be some of the people leading innovation in America who just don't feel like they have time to swipe or go on a bunch of mediocre dates or hang out at a bar or take up a hobby where they just might meet someone, which I can certainly relate to. She's been hugely successful at it. Her story is really interesting to me because it shows how a great campaign isn't always one big splashy TV spot. Often it's grassroots and the culmination of a bunch of intentional touch points and sometimes even partnerships. So it's also about being ready to seize major PR moments as they happen, which they've done a good job of. Sometimes the best campaign is actually a playbook that can sustain you over the long term. So with that, let's get right into it. Talia, how on earth did you become a matchmaker and then a CEO? Just tell me your origin story.
Sure, I'd love to. Well, I've always been into love. Like ever since I was a kid, I would host blind date parties in high school, which was a really weird thing to do. And I loved setting people up. After college, I started working in television, and my last job was at True Hollywood Story. I was a producer on the show. And I would sit in my cubicle and just talk dating all day. I would give relationship advice to my coworkers. I would set up all the executives, and I truly just did it for fun. I just had a passion. And I was setting up all these couples around the office. So I decided to host some parties around town so I could bring my colleagues together with my friends and try to connect people. So the first party had about 20. And within a few months, we had 300 and then 600 people all around town coming to these singles events where I'd run around and try to matchmake as many people as I could. And really, it was at one of those events that I realized something was missing in the market and I had a talent for setting people up. So I decided to quit my job and start a matchmaking company.
I love that. I also imagine there was a lot of opportunities for things to go wrong when you're matchmaking people within the same office place and people at different levels. Was that difficult to navigate?
It really wasn't. There were a lot of executives that no one would even talk to. Like they were scary in their office. And I'd just walk right in and say, like, Suzanne, tell me everything. Like, tell me about your love life. So I really didn't have any missteps. I was able to match a bunch of clients successfully. I had this one guy across from me in a cubicle, and I matched him with this woman that he ended up marrying, and they now have a child. And it was so fun because they would never have met without me. Like what they were both looking for, it really wasn't each other. But because I knew him so well and I had met this woman, I had a feeling they were the perfect match. So people trusted me, and the Department of E would come to my cubicle, and then later the other departments within the building caught on. And so I'd have a line just dishing out relationship advice.
I love that. And it sounds like you still love being in the weeds of matchmaking. You have a whole team of matchmakers that are doing the work, but you still like doing it yourself. How do you manage to keep oversight of the big picture of running and promoting the business while you're still in the work?
Yeah, I do love matchmaking. I'm 13 years into the company and I love it just as much as I did day one. I'm obsessed with setting people up. And so I'm in the weeds, not because it's part of my job description, but because I truly can't help myself. But I think it actually makes me a better leader because I know exactly what's going on within the company. I'm communicating really often with the matchmaking team. I'm talking directly to clients. Sometimes I'll even take on a client or two of my own just so I can get a feel for the technology that we're using and how we can help our matchmakers and our clients become better daters. So I think being in the weeds is a tiny bit of a distraction, but ultimately like it has a bigger impact because I'm able to prioritize like what can really help the business.
It kind of reminds me of, a thing at Lululemon and back when I worked at a company called Kit and Ace, we would all do shop shifts where we're actually on the ground selling retail. And it's kind of like the matchmaking equivalent of that, I guess.
Yes, exactly. It's like I see it firsthand. I'm not playing telephone. I know exactly what's happening with the business.
Let's talk about the business. So, you've talked a lot in previous interviews about the origin of the name 3 Day Rule, which goes back to the movie Swingers. And I don't think texting was as much of a thing back when Swingers came out, but I think the idea was that you should wait 3 days to call a date and not seem desperate.
Correct? Yes.
There's feels like there's a message buried in that name that might seem a little counterintuitive to someone trying to find love. How much do you think the name of a company shapes the brand?
I think it's really important. So with 3 Day Rule, yes, we do not believe in the 3 Day Rule, the actual rule. It was just a funny name. The company started as a blog, and I named it 3 Day Rule because of swingers. And then as we became a matchmaking company, I decided to keep it. At the time, the apps didn't exist. So there was eHarmony, OkCupid, Match, and JDate. Those were the main websites. And all of those names shouted love and dating. It was very clear what they were. But I didn't want that because I was hosting these really cool exclusive events. And I thought if we had a lovey-dovey name like that, people wouldn't show up. They'd be embarrassed to go to a singles event. So I liked 3 Day Rule because it was dating related without shouting dating. And so I kept it. And then I wasn't quite sure about the name. I had some doubt, so I ran focus groups. And the feedback was that women disliked the name. They did not like 3 Day Rule, but men loved it. And I always had more single women than men. So I didn't really need more women. What I needed was to get the guy. So I decided to keep the name because I knew that would always be the case. And still to this day, we're always chasing. We're trying to find as many single guys as possible.
Yeah, that feels so true. Like the idea of 3 Day Rule is not to seem desperate, and it speaks to your audience of like, you're not desperate just because you're using the service.
Yeah,
So
it's actually
that really
exactly
makes
the
sense.
opposite. So a lot of times there's misconceptions around matchmaking where people think that it's for people who are desperate, but it's the opposite. It's for people who are incredibly successful and interesting and attractive, and they don't have 12 hours a week to spend online dating. That's how long the average online dater spends a week. And rather, they would just like the best of the best and to save them time and energy. So it's really for, it's like a luxury service.
Yeah, there's a feeling of exclusivity that comes with it, which makes sense.
Exactly.
Awesome. So, on this podcast, usually we're talking to folks who have had maybe one or two big landmark campaigns that really propelled them into the spotlight. But sometimes it's actually those grassroots, smaller, multiple touch point initiatives that really make the difference. And I know in hearing from you, that's often been the case for you. What are those seemingly simple initiatives that have brought a huge amount of growth to your business over the last 13 years?
Well, what's interesting is from when I started the company until today, the number one way people sign up in our system is through word of mouth. So even now that we have tons of resources to spend on marketing, it's still word of mouth. So it ultimately comes down to client experience. But in the very beginning, we had to get creative. There wasn't social media, so I was like boots on the ground passing out flyers to get people to come to the events. And we created some campaigns so we could get friends of friends to sign up. So one of the very early campaigns we called Little Birdie, and we asked executives around town to tell us who the cool single people were in their office anonymously. And then we would deliver them a care package that was pretty big so people would notice, with a note that said, a little birdie told us you're single and a total catch. Sign up for 3 Day Rule. And so they signed up and their friends signed up because it created buzz around the office. We created some fun campaigns like that.
That sounds like it would make a splash in an office. Right.
Yes.
What do you think all those little initiatives taught you about marketing? Like, what have you, now that we are in an age of social media, what are you applying nowadays that harkens back to that?
I honestly think it ultimately comes down to client experience, because for us, we match a couple successfully and then they tell their friends, and we match those people successfully, then they share with their friends. And that's like the best, warmest, cheapest lead is client experience. So we have all these marketing initiatives and we have strategic partners and we pay for advertising, we do PR, but ultimately the best leads come from client experience. So I think that is number one. It's just making sure that anyone who comes through the door really has an exceptional experience, that your client experience team is top notch, and that everyone on the team really believes in the mission and the ethos, so that you can really deliver like the best experience possible.
Yeah. So really about building trust and then ensuring that that trust is then core to your brand through every one of those touch points.
Exactly. Yeah. We all are genuine. Any person at 3-Day Rule that we hire, they are incredibly genuine. We all believe in the mission. We want to help people. We truly believe like these little micro successes can help change the world. So that carries through with everything, with all the PR and the marketing and client experience, just like the same set of values.
And it seems like your matchmakers really live and breathe the brand. Like they all have Instagram profiles that call them out as matchmakers. Like it's extending into their personal identities. Does that seem fair?
Absolutely. They are so proud to be matchmakers, and they wear this swag, and they, every party we have these little cards that we pass out. I'll sit on a plane and I'll always pick the aisle seat. And as I see cute guys, like, are you single? Are you single? Are you single? We're like constantly recruiting. Every yoga class, every party that we go to, they're, like the world is like a singles bar. Like everyone around it, like, there's got to be some match for our clients. So we're always recruiting, and it's such a fun job. Like any dinner party, the matchmakers have stories upon stories. So they love it. It's a huge part of the culture.
I have to imagine that if part of your job is to regularly ask people if they're single, it sometimes brings about some awkward exchanges. Have there ever been any weird moments?
We train the matchmakers. I mean, we walk up to people all the time. Like I'll walk up to somebody at Starbucks. Hi, any chance you're single? I'm a matchmaker. Like we have to follow it up immediately. I'll say, it's not for me. I'm married. I'm just recruiting someone for my client. And we do it all the time on LinkedIn, on Instagram. We're shameless, but that's why people hire us. It's because it's a lot easier for us to do it than for them to.
For sure. And, we were introduced by Katie Boston Wilson, who was one of your very first matchmakers,
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken. And I know in my chats with her, and she's on the podcast as well, she still really identifies as a matchmaker, even though she's now also a successful entrepreneur. It seems like it just becomes part of your identity, and like that sort of joyful army of matchmakers become your marketers.
That's exactly right. We're like we have 50 brand ambassadors across the country. And then once we set up a client successfully, they're an ambassador for us. Some of our clients are well-known entrepreneurs and celebrities, and they'll talk about us on social media. And that's the best marketing that we can get, especially because it's organic. We've paid for marketing in the past, and that doesn't work as well, when it's like not authentic. But anyone that we've matched successfully, when they speak about it, it ends up recruiting so many people.
Maybe just building on that, I know some of the biggest moments for 3-Day Rule have been those like large unintended PR pieces that came about from your successes speaking for you. Can you tell me a little bit about those? And maybe more importantly, how do you set up a business to be able to respond quickly when those big serendipitous PR moments happen?
Yes, they've been such a blessing. We've had a lot of them. A couple that come to mind immediately. One, we had a client. She wrote an op-ed in LA Times all about her experience. She ended up married to her match. We didn't know it was coming out until it was already in the papers. So that was so fun to see, and has brought us a ton of leads. We had another client. She heard an advertisement on NPR where they asked, like, is anybody doing online dating or a dating experience that we can follow on a date? And our client responded and said she was working with 3-Day Rule and that NPR could follow her on a date. So we matched her with another client of ours, and they went out to dinner, and the whole thing was being filmed. They ended up having a blast, and they closed down the restaurant. So that was a huge win because the piece on NPR was really positive. And then a year later, they surprised us. They went back on NPR to announce they had gotten married. And so that was another huge PR piece. So those are the best because, we didn't seek them out and they're like authentic to the experience. So we know how important PR is. People reach out to us all the time. Like we have an email press at 3-Day Rule and it goes to somebody on our leadership team. And we know when we get an inquiry from Wall Street Journal or New York Times that we have to jump on it right away, because if we don't, they're running to another matchmaking company. And we also know we have to deliver exactly what they're asking and make it incredibly easy for them. So when we get one of those inquiries, let's say they're asking for a specific success story, we'll email the entire team, have them stop what they're doing to help us find exactly what we need. And then we'll serve it to the journalist on a silver platter. And that way they know we can deliver and can count on us. So then when another story pops up, like they'll reach out.
Yeah, so you're set up to act super fast because obviously most journalists are on a deadline. Most of them don't have a week to put together a story. And if
Exactly.
you're not giving them what they need, they're going to move on to the next one.
Right. And we've seen it's the gift that keeps on giving. You get a great PR story and it lives there forever when someone Googles.
And do you see a huge influx of signups when those moments happen?
Huge. The PR has helped us more than really, I think, anything. Like we've been on major reality TV shows and things that I thought would bring in a ton of leads. It's the press that gets people into the system years later.
Hmm. Have you paid for PR? Like, have you had a PR service or has it all been just truly organic?
We have paid, we've done it all. We had larger agencies, smaller agencies, and we've had no agency. What's worked the least for us is big agencies. We paid a ton of money to have these larger PR agencies, and they really didn't deliver much. They would act like, oh my gosh, we got into Yahoo Shine. I know that's not going to be very helpful. So I won't do that again. When we launched cities, we'll hire a city-specific, like hyper-local PR firm. That has been helpful. But over the last few years, we haven't had any PR firm. We do it all in-house. So usually it's inbound leads, but we do have someone on our team, on our leadership team, that will reach out as well and just, try to get press. And also, like, anytime we have anything interesting, like, I will reach out. One time I went through fundraising pregnant. I thought it was an interesting experience. So I reached out to Fortune magazine. Are you interested in hearing my story? She said, send me a draft within 24 hours. I did, and it went up and ended up being really helpful for us.
Sometimes it's just being ready to make that pitch
Yes, exactly.
and making the time to do it. And, in my research about you, that story about fundraising while pregnant, that's some of the most prominent press out there to this day.
Yes, that was really
Yeah.
interesting. I think at the time it wasn't a popular topic. And so after that came out, I had so many women reach out to me saying they had a really similar experience. So I think it resonated.
So you talked about, spending big chunks of money on big PR firms and that not necessarily being what was going to work for you. They have probably big monthly retainers, but you're not really seeing the return on the same frequency that you're paying those retainers. Have there been any other big missteps that you've made on the marketing front along the way? Anything that went wrong or that you deeply regret?
I wouldn't say I deeply regret this, but early on we partnered with Match.com and they became our marketing partner. And we integrated with them, and I put all of our resources into this partnership, and it was helpful, but I regret putting all my eggs in that one basket. I really relied on them as the marketing partner, and when that partnership ultimately didn't work long term, I was stuck and I didn't know how to market without them. So I wish that I had used them as a resource, but also learned how to market outside of Match, because we had to quickly figure it out when that partnership ultimately didn't work out.
Yeah. It sounds like when you go into a new city, you said you use those local PR firms. There's probably so much to be said for just knowing the market that you're going into. What are the risks of not doing that local touch point and really knowing what you're stepping into?
Yes. That local PR strategy worked really well to launch our markets, and we got lucky with most of our markets. There were a couple markets where we didn't do enough research ahead of time to really know what they were like. We just sort of gut checked. We thought we should be in these certain cities, and we went through our entire playbook, but then they weren't exactly what we thought, and we ended up leaving the cities. So yeah, I think there are some risks by we went with where the demand was, but then sometimes we didn't know just enough about the market.
Yeah.
So we nailed most of them.
Yeah. How would that throw things off?
Well, Seattle is one example. It was like our 11th or 12th city. We had people that were demanding for us to be in Seattle, and we thought, great, there are all these tech companies there. Let's make it our next city. And we went through our entire playbook of hiring a local PR firm, hiring matchmaker, throwing a couple parties. But then we realized that the Seattle freeze is real, and it was hard for people they weren't coming to the events, and they weren't quite as into the matchmaking as we thought they were or would be. And so we ultimately pulled out of Seattle. We still do a little bit matchmaking there, but it just wasn't what we thought it would be.
Something about the Pacific Northwest. I think Vancouver is infamously the same way. And I don't know if it's because Seattle and Vancouver are such outdoorsy cities. We don't have the same type of nightlife that other cities have, or if it's just like too rainy. We don't want to get our hair wet.
I was fascinated. When we did our launch party in Seattle, I was fascinated because nobody uses an umbrella. Everyone just walks around in the rain. I've never seen that before.
Very Seattle and Portland thing. In Vancouver, we use umbrellas.
Oh, you do?
We want to look good still. Gore-Tex does not cover it when you're going to an evening event, you know?
Yeah.
But it's a quirky, it's just a different, yeah, it's a different landscape. And I think in the Pacific Northwest as well, even there's a culture of, like people don't really go up to people in bars here in Vancouver. It's a really foreign thing. And I think people that come from other cities or other countries find it confusing. And I wonder if Seattle maybe is a little bit similar.
Yeah, I think what we heard is people sort of stuck to their groups and they weren't really branching out. It may be different. That was years and years ago. Maybe if we went back now, it would be different. But that was our experience.
Yeah. You mentioned your playbook for when you launch new cities. It sounds like you have just like a really clear set of steps that allow you to scale up quickly when you move to a new town. Tell me a little bit more about how you do that.
Yes, we've got it down to a formula. So what we would do, we'd pick a new city. We would hire 2 matchmakers on the ground in that city so they could work together and start bringing people into the network. And then we would find a small, like hyper-local PR firm, 1 or 2 people that were connected and they kind of knew like who was important in the town. And then we'd have them start to get us some press, like radio interviews and magazines. Then we would host 2 parties. The first would be about 100 people VIP party for press and like influencers in that city. And then the next would be a consumer party for about 100 to 200 people. That was just a singles event, like the coolest singles in town. After that, we would have enough people to be able to launch the city and we would move on to the next.
When you look back, so, 13 years, 12 cities, you've been at this for quite a long time. Is there anything you would have done differently if you did it again?
It's so hard. I mean, a lot of things I would have done differently. It's so hard to know. Part of me feels like maybe we grew a little too quickly. And in order to do that, I had to raise funds. But we could have grown slower and not raised capital. So that's one thing I think about. Another thing that we were on Shark Tank early on. It was like when we first started 3-Day Rule, and I was backstage very pregnant and decided at the last minute I didn't want to have a baby on TV. And so I sent my business partner out without me. She was single at the time. And what the sharks came back and said is never trust a skinny chef and never trust a single matchmaker. And so they didn't give us funding. And I always wonder if I had gone out there, I was the matchmaker and I was clearly married with a baby on the way, wouldn't that have changed the trajectory? Who knows? Yeah, there are a lot of things I'm curious about.
Did the Shark Tank appearance boost your signups?
Definitely. It was incredibly helpful. We had 10,000 people that signed up the night it aired. And so
Wow.
that really helped us take off. So it didn't really matter ultimately that we didn't get a deal. But I am curious of what would have happened if I went out there.
Totally. I mean, on the fundraising side of things, if I'm thinking, even 2 years ago, but 13 years ago, that was just what you did. Did it feel like there was an option even to not go that route at that time?
Not really. No, not really. The difference, there really were not a lot of women fundraising. Like every tech conference I went to was all men and like 4 women. So it was quite challenging to fundraise. And I had the luxury of fundraising pregnant twice, so just pretty bad timing. What we raised a seed round, and then our next round we raised from Match.com. So they became our investor and strategic partner. And that was what really helped us scale across the country.
Yeah. So you did both your raises while pregnant. It's kind of like the Ali Wong approach. You did both of her
Yeah,
comedy specials while
exactly.
pregnant, and you did
I
both
don't
of your raises
recommend
while
it.
pregnant. I mean, it worked for Ali, so and it
Yes.
clearly worked for you too.
Yeah, it did ultimately work.
Coming back to marketing and branding, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given in that world?
I don't even know that I was given this advice, but it's this one piece of advice I use for everything, for marketing and branding, and it's opinions or data points. So I think it's really important to hear opinions and to see if there are common themes. But ultimately, you're the expert, so you should just trust your gut. So I use that for a lot of things. Yeah, in marketing and branding and just overall within the company.
And, especially brand things, like your name is a perfect example. Brand elements are so subjective until they actually establish a reputation and you're known in the market. It's all just opinion. And really like people could have hugely varying opinions, but the brand needs to prove itself out in the market before any of those have any relevance. I've never heard that advice, but I actually truly love it and I'm going to take it to heart going forward.
I don't even know if this is branding and marketing related, but we went through a tech incubator and there was one story that I remember. And it was this woman, I won't give her name, but she's like a big time shoe designer. And she created these shoes and went to Neiman Marcus and wanted Neiman Marcus to purchase the shoes. And they said, no, they're not expensive enough. And then she went a year later with the exact same shoes, marked them up $500, and they took them, and her business took off. So that happened early with 3-Day Rule as well. Like we were charging such a small amount of money, and a couple of the advisors said, like, you really need to charge more if this is really like a luxury service. And I was very hesitant to do it. But then over the years, I realized that they were right. Like if this is truly a luxury, an exclusive experience, like I need to charge the pricing for that.
Yeah, a big part of your positioning is your pricing. And that sends people a message. It's almost like that is a marketing tactic in and of itself, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, couple more questions for you. What's coming down the line for 3-Day Rule? What are you excited about? Are you opening any new cities? Are you just staying the course? What can we be expecting?
Well, we just launched Miami. So if you're in Miami, sign up. And we are definitely launching additional cities. One thing that we're focusing on for next year is we have hundreds of thousands of people that are sitting in our network. They sign up to be matched with our clients, but we really don't do much with them. So we're working on some courses and some lower price point opportunities so we can help them become better daters and give them a better experience than just sitting in the pool waiting for a match.
Incredible. So you're basically creating a product that's really scalable. It's that entry level price point, and maybe those people will never convert to actually getting matched, but they're still part of your ecosystem and you're offering them a valuable product that they can afford.
Yes. We want to help as many people as we can, and not everyone can afford the matchmaking service. So we're coming up with ways to be able to help a broader group.
Awesome. Okay, Talia, where can people find you online? Where should they be following along with you?
We're at 3dayrule.com, and you have to spell it out. And that's because I didn't pay the subscription on the number 3-Day Rule on GoDaddy, and we lost it to an 80s cover band. So you have to spell out the number 3-day rule, we're the same on all social channels.
Amazing. Great. Okay, well, I'll be following along. Looking forward to seeing what cities you open next and getting all the dating tips and advice that I can.
Oh,
Thanks,
good.
Talia.
You're
Appreciate your
welcome.
time.
Thank you.